Hello and welcome. My name is Javier, and today in our DTF series we're going to be talking about foam carts versus the original carts. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit more about each one of them. There's been a lot of questions about these foam carts. There's been a lot of questions about the OEM carts. So I'm going to be discussing, pretty much how each one of them work, and then we'll go ahead and say, pretty much which ones I like the best, and then you can make up your mind. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's get started. All right, guys, so let's start with the foam carts, okay? I'm going to try to find a way to, sorry for the lighting, I'm trying to shoot this quick video. There's a lot of questions about this. So this is your foam carts, this is your normal foam carts, and I want to explain how these work, okay? So the way these work is you're going to fill the ink on this side, okay? So this right here is your fill port. Right in here, you're going to have a rubber piece right on this side. That actually is your vent port. But when you're going to fill these up, you need to make sure, like every XP cart, okay, that you have your caps, okay, and you hear that, right? You hear that click. You want it to have a good seal. You're gonna fill this side up, okay, with the cap on. You fill this up. You don't want to fill them like all the way up. You're going to fill it somewhere around the 3/4 line, somewhere in there. And I'll explain a little bit why. And you're going to remove that rubber cap, okay? When you do that, here on the bottom, you're going to see that this separation right here, and you have the sponge. The bottom of that separation, it is not closed. So now ink from here through the bottom is going to suck through in and then fill this form portion, okay? Once you see this come down, you're going to close this up, fill this up again, remove, and you're going to do that onto your ink, and until you see this foam get the color of the ink you're filling up somewhere around here, like 3/4 of the way, okay? At that point, then you're going to cap, you're going to fill up, make sure it's filled, you're going to put this cap, okay? And when you have both of those caps on, okay, now you can remove this orange cap with both of the caps, okay? Why? Because there's no air. And then ink is not going to start just pouring out of the bottom. And then you can put your cart in the actual printer. Now, when you have the cart on the printer and when you're ready to print, you are going to remove the plug that is on this top portion, that little clear plug, okay? That's what you're going to remove. And then this one you're never going to open when you have on the printer. And I shouldn't be pointing with an X-Acto knife. So let me put this away before I go ahead and slice my fingers. But pretty much, yeah, that's how these work. The problem that we have with these, and once you see what I'm about to show you with the OEM carts, you're going to understand the problems with these. As you keep filling in here, if you put a CISS, a continuous ink system, okay, you're going to put your fill hose in here. Okay, and now you're not going to remove the vent port because you need to create suction on this part to actually bring that through the hose into the cart, and you're going to vent your tank on the CIS. Okay, not these, but the actual CIS. Now, when you do that, you're going to bring ink through here, fill your foam, ink through here, fill your foam, ink through here, fill your foam. And you're going to continue to do that motion. This part of the foam on the top is going to start drying up. And then this part on the top is what allows you to do continuous prints. That's what it lets you, let's say, do, like 3, 4, 5 full pages. When this foam part starts getting dry, you're going to print one page, is going to tell you the ink is empty. Why? Because you're going to start sucking up air, okay? And you're not going to be printing air. Don't be scared of that. But what's going to happen is the printer itself is going to start raising its temperatures because it doesn't have enough ink to cool it down. And when the printer detects that it's starting to get a little bit hotter, it's going to think that you don't have enough ink, so it's going to start telling you that your ink is low. Okay, because it uses also temperatures to calculate. If you don't believe me, go ahead, be my guest. Keep printing until you see this dry up, and you'll see that you can only get one print out. Or you might not even have full lines on your test print, okay? So you are going to start having, issues with that. Now, what you do to get rid of that, okay, is you're gonna go ahead and put you remove your cart, of course, plugging it so you don't have too many issues. You put this baby in here, okay? You're gonna make sure that you have ink on this side, okay? And let me get a a syringe real quick. And what you're going to do, okay, is you're going to purge it. And I don't know if you've seen videos of this, but you're going to put your syringe on the hole for vent, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to start with this side open for the fill port. You're going to start creating suction, okay? And you're going to see your foam that is going to start getting ink. And you want to get it to, again, 3/4 of the way, okay? You don't want that foam too heavy. Now, when you do that, then you're going to go ahead and remove this. You're going to cap it. You're going to reinstall it. You do it again. When you purge it, you're going to see that you're going to start printing again the way you were before. That's why I don't like the foam cards, because if you don't purge them constantly, okay, this part of the foam is going to dry up. And when this dries up and becomes solid, then you're not going to be able to vent, which eventually you're going to see that you have ink in here, and then you won't be able to print. You're going to have issues with your lines. Also, the foam can start curing here on the bottom, and then that's when you see a lot of people that what they do is they actually, you know, press it down on a page and they want to see the square on it. But that's why I don't like them. A lot of people use them. There's nothing wrong with them. They just take a lot of maintenance. Now, if you see a OEM cart, okay, the OEM cart is hollow on the inside. There is no foam, and because there's no foam, they don't dry up. So then you can print a lot more. Okay, but I want to explain how these work. So if we go to here, okay, this is, and I open very roughly, so I apologize for that, guys. So you're going to see, and I showed this on my other videos, you're going to have a bag, okay, and that bag collapses and, you know, contracts and moves. Now, the reason why you have that spring is because this is hollow on the inside, okay? If you see that this part is hollow. There is nothing, there's nothing in here holding the ink to just pour out, okay? When you vent this, it just, again, the ink is just going to pour out, it's just going to come out. So what it does is this is keeping the back open and not letting all that ink just go out of the printer. And hopefully I'm making sense. So again, once you remove that bottom portion, okay, if this spring is not here trying to keep the back open, it's just going to go ahead and suck all that ink in, and then the ink is down. So what this is actually doing is it's not letting the ink come out too fast, okay? So this has a purpose. But this works when it's on vacuum. So what happens when we drill this on the top is that this back, this spring is not doing anything because it needs to work on suction. It needs to be closed. So then when the ink is trying to come out, it's trying to compress, and it doesn't let the ink compress, okay? And that's how that works. But at the moment that you do this and you open that up, the ink just pours down. The spring is not doing anything anymore because it's vented, okay? And we're gonna go to step 2 into how it works. In the inside, to vent this portion, because again, this bag can push in, and the reason why we can refill them is because it actually also comes out, okay? So even if I close this, goes in, comes out, goes in, comes out. Why? And now you see that it takes a little bit more time, but why it does that? Because you have a vent on the inside, this little vent right here, okay? Now, if we see this with the bag, we're going to see, and hopefully you guys can see it, there is a tiny vent port right here, okay? Let me go to the exact, oh, you know what? I'll use this little thing right here. So right there, right where I'm sticking this little unclogging tool, that it's a vent port. Now that little hole, if you guys can hopefully see this, what it does is you have a channel here that I destroyed trying to open this up. That channel that little channel lets air go through here, okay? And then it will be in the middle of your bag, okay? And then it will travel through these lines. So if you see, this is covered, so the bag won't actually, clog the lines. So it's just a piece of paper to leave those channels open. And if you see right in here, what I'm pointing out, these parts are not covered. So what it does is it lets air here, okay? Air goes through those channels, and this is going to be closed because I closed it, but then you're supposed to have a little hole in here that allows the air. Now, again, what it does is when it needs air to go on reverse, it has a little spring inside, like a check valve, like a one-way valve, okay? So air can go one way but not another, okay? Now, what's the problem with this? If we, for some reason, when we're cleaning them, if we create too much suction, or we're being too rough with them or whatever, and I don't know if you guys can see it, man. I'm having a little hard time trying to get you guys to see it, but in here, there's a spring. And also, this has a little lever. Why? Because when the metal plate goes all the way back and it actually pushes on that, okay, it opens that little vent port and allows it to breathe, okay? Now, what happens is if this port gets messed up and stays open, okay, now you're going to have ink that when you're trying to fill this up, if you fill it too much, you're going to have ink that's going to come out of this hole, travel through the channels, come out of the port. Okay, so there is multiple ways that we can damage this. Now, one way will be compromising the bag. If we drill a hole here on the top, and by any reason we go ahead and we poke a hole in this bag, okay, eventually that ink is going to work its way into this portion outside of the bag. It's going to travel through these little channels that you see on this side, okay, and then it's going to come out of the vent port. So if you drill these and you're having ink through the vent port, two things: bag could be compromised, okay, or most likely this little check valve got compromised. Now, one way to save it is use a CIS, because the continuous ink system, you need to actually cover these, as I have covered on previous videos. So we can do that. Or if you want, don't do 15 mil fill on this. Instead of going 15, go like 7 or 8. Try to fill this cart. Let's say like halfway through, like up to here, which it will be around, I'll say 7, maybe 8 mils of ink on it, and then see if you have any more ink coming out of the vent port. If you don't, then what got compromised is there's a little check valve. The cartridge will still work, okay? There is no issue if this actually messed up, because we're going to be opening that to fill it up and you're gonna let air out, there's no problem. So again, to allow these to work, so the reason why I drill them is to make it easier to fill them up, because before I came with this little trick, you had to fill them through the bottom and they're a little pain, okay? And but that's why we drill them on the top. But if you're having issues, again, the best way to find out is, you know, you need to make sure you have a good seal in here. And if you have a good seal and you see ink coming out of that little vent port, then two things: bag is compromised, or little check valve inside is compromised. Best way to find out: don't fill the cart to 15, okay? 15, 14, 15 is the top. I'll say then fill it up with 9, and then see. Again, either way, if it's this little check valve or the vent port, if you do a continuous ink, that will stop. And then either way, I encourage you to use a CIS. So hopefully this makes sense. All right, guys, so there you have it. That's pretty much, hopefully I covered everything on both of them. So one thing I do got to say is make sure that when you're actually filling them up, that you know, you make sure that you have a good nice and seal, that you hear that click, that is straight, because if not, you're gonna have ink everywhere, because it's vented. You know, when you're filling it up, you're pretty much, you know, you have it open. Same with these. These are kind of tricky when you're the OEMs, when you're closing them, because you might hear that click, but they might be a little sideways. So make sure that they're closed. When they're closed, you will not get ink on the bottom, okay? If you're starting to see ink, you know, leaking through the bottom and everything, no matter if you're filling it up or anything, these actually seal a lot better than these. The rubber starts getting messed up a little bit after, you know, they're getting old. So, but these got a good seal. So if you see ink on the bottom, they're not set properly, okay? So make sure they're set properly, and don't throw your caps away. You're gonna need them to fill your carts. And I do not recommend filling up your carts while they're on the printer. Okay, if you push too much ink in there, you're gonna flood the print head. Okay, and I want you to make sure that print head doesn't touch any type of water-based product, which will be ink also. That circuit board is pretty sensitive. Okay, so which one I like the best? OEM, hands down. Nothing wrong with the foam if that's what you want to use, but the foam, I have noticed that it restricts how many pages I can print. I get twice as many pages, or I can say even almost 3 times as many pages when I'm using OEM versus when I'm using the foam cards. The foam cards actually restrict the ink flow, which actually tells the printer that your ink is slow, and then you're going to be resetting that XP a lot. If you don't mind resetting the printer, if you don't mind, you know, that, then foam cards are good. But again, foam cards are pretty disposable. These, I have a lot of them. But you're gonna see that I use the same ones all the time, or I use them for cleaning solution. But I'm still with the ones that came with the printer. You know, versus foam cards. After a while, that foam starts getting messed up, and you have to change them. Also, the reason why I tell you don't let that foam get all the way up. Now, you might see black or magenta or even cyan that it will. No matter if when you fill it up, you're going to see that as you're printing, you're going to see that it goes all the way to the top of the foam. That's just pretty much there's no ink on that part of the foam. You see the color because the foam is white, and you see the stain on it, but there's no actual ink on it. And what I'm saying to be careful, don't ever fill it to the top. If you saw ink coming out through the syringe, try to push a little bit down. I know you're gonna have ink everywhere, but don't do it, because then what's gonna happen is the sponge is gonna be so heavy and so saturated that then ink is gonna flood all the way to the printer, because you're not supposed to have that much. That heavy ink is gonna push down and try to level set itself. And that's why a lot of people say the foam cards actually flood your printer. It is not the foam card that floods your printer, is that if you pretty much over purged it or you overfilled it on the foam portion, that foam is going to be so heavy that it's going to push all that ink down. So there's a couple of things that on these that you got to be careful. Again, understanding that one side is your vent and one side is your fill. Vent is on the foam, fill is on the area that has no foam. And then also that if you put a continuous ink, you're gonna fill on your fill. Okay, don't try to put it in here. It won't even fit, and if you do, I don't know. But you'll be surprised on how many things I've seen with these. So just with the foam, if you use them, be careful. Don't ever fill them on the printer. Same with the OEM. Now, I like the OEM, and the reason why is because they're hollow inside. They don't have a foam. They don't have anything that it's going to get messed up. The only thing they have is the mesh on the bottom. So they have that little mesh on the bottom, which is pretty much it's supposed to be a filter. Make sure that the ink is flowing properly and all that. I wish it was a damper. That's the only thing with the XP. A damper will even last longer for the printer, but I like the OEM carts. So I'm just hoping that you guys understand how the OEM carts work. Hopefully these answer all your questions, because a lot of people were asking how they work internally, why, how to know if they compromise the bag. You'll know if you compromise the bag. You'll be able to do things. To know. They're just be ink flowing pretty quickly, and you can kind of hear the bag. If you don't hear the bag, it's pretty much that little check valve on the inside. And what's going to happen is you're gonna have now less ink on that. You can still use it, but then now you cut your ink supply lower. So then for that being, then I just recommend do a continuous ink system. Is the best way to go. I love it. I love having that continuous ink. Now, also remember, I'll say maybe once a week at least, you still have to remove your cards. You want to shake your cards, and you want to put them back, okay? So even though you have a CIS that you're going to be shaking and you're going to shake your inks out there, don't forget to shake your cards, okay? So hopefully you enjoyed this video, guys. I'm sorry I haven't released any content lately. I've been super busy. I'm trying. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do out there. There's a lot of translation videos that I have to do, so for my DTF in Spanish. But thank you guys for watching. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe. Always leave me a comment. And once again, thank you for your support, guys.